There's a monastery carved into a mountainside in China's Wudang range where monks have trained for over 600 years. A neuroscience research team visited in 2019 and ran brain scans on 12 senior monks during deep practice. What they found broke their models. These monks could enter a state of peak cognitive performance, faster reaction time, sharper decision-making, deeper creativity, on command. But here's what shattered every assumption the researchers carried in with them. The monks weren't activating more of their brain. They were activating less. The regions responsible for overthinking, self-doubt, mental noise, those regions went almost silent. Their brains weren't working harder. Their brains had learned to get out of their own way. Now look at your life. You set an alarm to wake up early. You don't get up. You write a plan. You don't follow it. You know exactly what to eat, how to train, what to study, when to sleep. The information is there. The knowledge is complete. But your mind doesn't listen. It argues. It negotiates. It generates 40 reasons why tomorrow would be a better day to start. You're not lacking intelligence. You're not lacking information. You're drowning in mental noise so loud that your own intentions can't reach your body. You've been told your whole life that the solution is more force, more willpower, more discipline, push harder, grind longer, fight your own resistance until it breaks. And how's that working? Every January, you white-knuckle your way through resolutions that collapse by February. Every Monday, you restart routines that die by Wednesday. You're locked in a war with your own mind, and you keep losing because the strategy is fundamentally flawed. You cannot force your mind into obedience. Lao Tzu knew this 2,500 years ago. He wrote it in a text that has been translated more times than any book in history except the Bible, the Tao Te Ching. And in it, he described a principle so counterintuitive that modern neuroscience took 2 millennia to prove him right. Wu Wei, non-action, not doing nothing, doing without forcing, moving without fighting yourself. It's the art of training your mind to obey you not by overpowering it, but by removing the war entirely. That's not weakness. That's the highest form of mental control in existence. And today you'll learn exactly how it works. 5 principles from Lao Tzu's Wu Wei that reprogram your mind from an enemy you fight into an instrument you wield. Let's begin. Before we go deeper, drop a comment below and tell me honestly, how many times this month has your mind talked you out of something you knew was right for you? Subscribe if this channel hasn't found you yet, because this one hits different. The war you were never supposed to fight. Your mind produces approximately 6,200 thoughts per day. That number comes from a 2020 study at Queen's University in Canada, published in Nature Communications, where neuroscientist Dr. Jordan Popink and researcher Julie Singh used brain imaging to detect what they called thought worms, the neural signatures of individual thoughts transitioning from one to the next. 6,200 daily thought transitions in the average brain. Here's the problem. You don't choose the vast majority of those thoughts. They arrive uninvited. They loop. They spiral. They pull you into imagined arguments with people who aren't in the room, into anxieties about futures that haven't happened, into replays of failures that ended years ago. Your mind isn't disobeying you. It's running an autopilot program that you never installed and can't seem to uninstall. Neuroscience has a name for this autopilot: the default mode network. It's a constellation of brain regions that activates the moment you stop focusing on an external task. The moment you're idle, waiting in line, lying in bed, sitting with nothing to do, this network fires up and begins generating self-referential thought. Am I good enough? What do they think of me? What if that plan fails? What if I'm wasting my life? Research published in 2023 in PMC journals found that hyperactivity in the default mode network is directly linked to chronic rumination, anxiety disorders, and depression. Your mind isn't broken. It's running a system that's stuck in the on position. Now here's where it gets worse. Every time you try to stop the noise through sheer willpower, through forcing yourself to just stop thinking, you engage your prefrontal cortex in a direct battle against the default mode network. Dr. Amy Arnston at Yale University has spent decades studying what happens to the prefrontal cortex under stress. Her research, cited over 5,000 times, shows that when you force cognitive control under pressure, the brain releases catecholamines, stress chemicals, that actually impair prefrontal function. The harder you fight your own thoughts, the weaker the part of your brain that controls thoughts becomes. You're using force against a system that gets stronger the more force you apply. This is why willpower fails. Not because you're weak, because the mechanism is backwards. You're swinging a sword at water. The water doesn't break. It absorbs every strike and fills the space again. Lao Tzu described this trap perfectly in the Tao Te Ching. The stiff and unbending is the disciple of death. The soft and yielding is the disciple of life. He wasn't writing poetry. He was diagnosing the fundamental error of mental control, using force on a system that responds only to flow. Wu Wei isn't the absence of control. It's control achieved through a completely different mechanism, one that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. The first principle, become the river that cuts stone. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 78. Nothing in the world is softer or weaker than water. Yet for attacking the hard and strong, nothing can surpass it. There's something water does that no amount of steel can replicate. It doesn't attack stone. It doesn't strike it. It flows over it, around it, beneath it, continuously, without effort, without strategy, without a single moment of aggression. And given time, it carves canyons. Your mind works the same way. The thoughts you fight get louder. The habits you white-knuckle yourself into feel like prison sentences. The goals you chase through gritted teeth become things you secretly resent. Because force creates resistance, always. In every system. Newton understood it. Physics demands it. And your brain obeys the same law. Wu Wei's first principle is direction without force. You don't fight the thought. You don't resist the craving. You don't battle the resistance. You acknowledge it the way a river acknowledges a boulder. It's there, and the water flows around it. Not with effort, with persistence so gentle it doesn't register as work. Practically, this looks nothing like what the self-help industry sells you. When the urge to scroll your phone arrives, the willpower approach says, clench your jaw and put it down. Wu Wei says, notice the urge the way you'd notice a cloud passing. Don't grip. Don't resist. Let the urge exist, and let your body continue doing what it was doing before the urge arrived. The thought is a boulder. You are the river. You don't stop for boulders. The neuroscience behind this isn't mystical. When you observe a thought or urge without engaging it, without feeding it emotional energy, the amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, doesn't activate. No amygdala activation means no stress hormones. No stress hormones means your prefrontal cortex stays fully online. You remain the decision maker, not the reactor. Every time you practice this, every single time you notice an urge and flow past it instead of wrestling it, you're training a neural pattern. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repeated experience, works in your favor here. You're literally building new pathways that make non-reactive observation the default response instead of emotional reaction. Lao Tzu wrote this instruction 2,500 years before neuroscience existed. The Tao does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone. He wasn't being paradoxical, he was being precise. The second principle. Empty the cup before you fill it. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 11. Mold clay into a bowl. The empty space makes it useful. Cut doors and windows to make a room. The emptiness makes the room useful. Your brain right now is a room with no floor space. Every surface covered. Every corner occupied. Opinions you absorbed from people you don't respect. Strategies from self-help books you never finished. Goals that belong to your parents' expectations, not your actual desires. Fears inherited from a culture that profits from your anxiety. Ambitions manufactured by social media algorithms that know your insecurities better than your closest friend. Your mind isn't disobeying you. It literally cannot hear you. There's too much noise. The signal, your actual intention, your actual will, gets lost in a room so full of other people's furniture that you can't walk through it. Wu Wei's second principle is strategic emptying. Before you can direct your mind, you must create space inside it. Not by adding another meditation app, not by layering more productivity systems on top of existing chaos, by removing. The practical protocol is what Taoist practitioners called Jingzuo, quiet sitting, and it's radically different from Western meditation. You don't focus on your breath. You don't repeat a mantra. You don't visualize anything. You sit, in silence, with zero intention. You're not trying to calm the mind. You're not trying to achieve any state. You're doing absolutely nothing and allowing the mind to do whatever it does. The first time you try this, the noise will be deafening. Thoughts will cascade. Anxiety will spike. Your body will itch to move, check something, do something productive. That reaction is your mind panicking because you've removed its stimulation supply. It's the same panic a person addicted to their phone feels when the battery dies. Sit through it, not with force, with the patience of someone watching a storm they know will pass. Arne Dietrich, the psychologist who developed the transient hypofrontality hypothesis at the American University of Beirut, published research starting in 2003 showing that during states of deep absorption, the prefrontal cortex, specifically the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex responsible for self-monitoring, inner criticism, and overthinking, temporarily reduces its activity. His hypothesis, validated through fMRI studies on jazz musicians by Charles Lim and Alan Braun at the National Institutes of Health, demonstrated that when this brain region quiets down, creativity surges, reaction time improves, and the subjective experience of effort disappears. You don't feel like you're working. You feel like you're flowing. Quiet sitting creates the conditions for this to happen naturally. No forcing, no technique, just emptying. 10 minutes daily, no phone in the room, no timer visible, just you and silence. The mind will empty itself the way a muddy glass of water clears when you stop stirring it. Lao Tzu's exact metaphor. Stop stirring. By week 2, you'll notice something strange. Decisions that used to paralyze you start arriving clean. Not because you got smarter, because you cleared the noise that was drowning out your own clarity. Here's what I want you to reflect on. What's the loudest piece of mental noise in your life right now? The one thought that replays constantly. Hit like if this is connecting, and tell me in the comments, because recognizing the noise is how you begin silencing it. The third principle. Stop chasing and let it arrive. There's a particular agony that modern culture has perfected. The agony of wanting. You want the promotion so badly that you can't perform naturally in the interview. You want the relationship so desperately that every interaction carries the weight of your entire emotional future. You want the body, the money, the freedom, and the wanting itself becomes a cage. Lao Tzu identified this trap with surgical precision. When you want nothing, you will find everything. This isn't mystical advice, it's neurological reality. When you want something intensely, your brain enters a state of deficit signaling. The anterior cingulate cortex, the brain region that monitors the gap between your current state and your desired state, fires continuously. It's generating a constant signal that says, "You don't have it yet. Something is missing. You're not there." This signal creates low-grade stress that persists as long as the wanting persists. Under this chronic wanting stress, your prefrontal cortex, the same region responsible for strategic thinking and creative problem-solving, gets suppressed. You become less capable of achieving the very thing you desperately want, precisely because you desperately want it. The Wu Wei approach inverts the mechanism. You define the direction. You establish the practice. Then you release attachment to the timeline and the outcome. Not because you don't care, because caring without clinging is the only state where your brain operates at full capacity. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who pioneered flow state research over 4 decades at the University of Chicago, described this exact phenomenon. He found that flow, the state of peak human performance where action and awareness merge and effort disappears, only occurs when a person is absorbed in the process itself, not fixated on the outcome. The moment you shift attention from the doing to the wanting, flow breaks. Performance drops. The mind fractures between present action and future craving. The samurai had a word for this state: mushin, no mind. Not empty-headed, not thoughtless. A mind so completely absorbed in the present action that no space exists for wanting, fearing, or calculating. Musashi achieved mushin in combat not by wanting to win, but by becoming the sword itself. The strike happened. He didn't force it. He didn't will it. He created the conditions, and the strike emerged. Your daily implementation of this principle starts here. Choose one activity you normally perform while mentally chasing a result. Working out while obsessing over your body. Studying while panicking about the exam. Working while fantasizing about the paycheck. For 1 week, practice performing that activity with total absorption in the process and zero attention on the result. Feel the weight, not the mirror. Read the sentence, not the grade. Write the paragraph, not the follower count. The result doesn't disappear. It arrives faster. Because your entire brain is now allocated to the work instead of being split between doing and wanting. The 4th principle, yield to advance. This is the principle that looks like defeat to everyone watching from the outside, but feels like mastery from the inside. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 22. Yield and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. There are moments where your mind will not cooperate. Days where the resistance is enormous. Where the alarm rings and your entire body refuses. Where the blank page stays blank. Where the workout feels impossible before the first rep. The willpower approach says, attack these moments. Fight through them. Override the resistance with brute force. Wu Wei says something far more intelligent. Yield. Not quit. Yield. The way a martial artist uses an opponent's force against them. The way bamboo bends in a typhoon that snaps oak trees. You don't surrender the objective. You surrender the method of reaching it. Can't write the chapter? Write 1 sentence. Can't do the full workout? Do 5 minutes. Can't study for 2 hours? Study for 10 minutes with complete presence. You yield on the scale. You never yield on the direction. The river doesn't fight the mountain. It finds the gap and keeps flowing. Some days the gap is narrow. You flow through it slowly. Some days the gap is wide. You pour through it. But you never stop flowing. This isn't laziness. This is strategic energy conservation that Lao Tzu articulated as the highest form of strength. The supreme good is like water. Water benefits the 10,000 things and does not strive. It flows in places men reject, and so is like the Tao. Practically, this means building what I call the minimum flow threshold into every discipline. Your meditation practice isn't 20 minutes or nothing. It's 20 minutes ideally, 2 minutes on the hardest days. Your training isn't the full program or skip day. It's the full program ideally, a walk on the hardest days. The minimum flow threshold ensures you never break the streak, never break the identity, never give your mind evidence that resistance works, because that's what quitting teaches your brain. It teaches the default mode network that resistance is an effective strategy. Generate enough noise and the human stops. Wu Wei teaches the opposite. Generate all the noise you want. I'm still flowing. Maybe slower today, but flowing. Within a month of this practice, something shifts at the neurological level. The resistance doesn't disappear, it weakens, because the brain learns that resistance doesn't produce the reward of avoidance anymore. The pattern breaks, not through force, through persistence so gentle the mind never realizes it's being retrained. The fifth principle: die before you act. This is Lao Tzu's most radical teaching, and the one that transforms everything above from practice into permanent identity. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 33. He who conquers others has force. He who conquers himself has true strength. Every act of resistance your mind generates comes from one source: fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, fear of discovering that you might not be enough. Your mind doesn't resist the workout. It resists the possibility of exhaustion. It doesn't resist the business. It resists the possibility of rejection. It doesn't resist the hard conversation. It resists the possibility of pain. Wu Wei's fifth principle eliminates fear's leverage entirely. You die to the outcome before you begin. Not metaphorical death in some vague philosophical sense. A concrete mental practice where, before any action that generates resistance, you accept the worst possible outcome as already having occurred. About to have the difficult conversation, the relationship is already over. Now speak freely. About to launch the project, it's already failed. Now build without fear. About to train, the workout is already miserable. Now move without negotiating. When you remove the thing fear is protecting you from by accepting it in advance, fear has nothing left to threaten you with. The mind goes quiet, not because you silenced it, because you removed its ammunition. There's nothing left to warn you about. You already accepted it. This is what Musashi meant when he wrote, "The way of the warrior is resolute acceptance of death." He wasn't being dramatic. He was describing the only psychological state in which a human being can act with zero internal resistance. When you've accepted the worst, everything above the worst becomes a bonus, and action becomes effortless. Not because the situation changed, because your mind stopped generating resistance to the situation. The implementation of Wu Wei isn't sequential, it's simultaneous. From tomorrow morning, you practice all 5 principles as a single operating system. Week 1. Practice the river mind. Notice urges without engaging. Watch thoughts pass without reacting. Build the observation muscle that keeps your prefrontal cortex online. Week 2. Add the 10 minutes of quiet sitting. No technique, no app. Just silence, and the willingness to sit through the noise until the water clears. Week 3. Choose one activity and practice process absorption. Remove outcome fixation for one domain of your life. Let the results arrive on their own schedule. Week 4. Implement the minimum flow threshold for your most important discipline. Never 0 days. Even on the worst days, flow at the minimum. Week 5. Before every act that generates resistance, practice the pre-acceptance. Accept the worst. Then act freely. By week 6, these aren't practices anymore. They're your operating system. Total daily investment, 0 extra minutes. This isn't added to your schedule. This replaces how you approach your existing schedule. Every activity, every decision, every moment of resistance, filtered through Wu Wei instead of force. Those monks in the Wudang mountains whose brains confused the neuroscience team weren't superhuman. They had practiced for years what Lao Tzu codified in 81 chapters of the most elegant philosophy ever written. They stopped fighting their minds. They stopped using force against a system that absorbs force. They learned to flow. And in that flow, their minds didn't just obey. Their minds became allies. The Tao Te Ching has survived 2,500 years, not because it's ancient, because it's accurate. Your mind was never designed to be conquered. It was designed to be aligned with. And the moment you stop fighting it, the moment you trade force for flow, something extraordinary happens. The mind obeys, not because you broke it, because you finally spoke its language. If this video shifted something in how you understand your own mind, subscribe and activate the bell. And tell me in the comments, which principle are you implementing first? The river mind, the empty cup, releasing the chase, yielding to advance, or dying before you act? Name it. Because naming the principle is the first act of Wu Wei, choosing without forcing. The flow begins now,